Well, I'm doing a follow-up interview with a gentleman I met in the Royal Square a few weeks ago on a demonstration, if it was called a demonstration. And it was about freedom and various associated things, human rights, child protection, and all sorts of issues which I'm interested in, but I knew nothing about it, so I went there to report. And this gentleman, Craig, he gave me an interview. Most of the people at the thing didn't want to speak to me. So it was rather strange. The Royal Square was full of people, but it was rather strange that they wouldn't speak to me, so I couldn't understand, and I still don't understand quite what it was all about. But since then, I presume things have moved on, and Craig can tell us what's happened since.
Well, I don't know really what's happened. I don't know if we've actually made any progress. I think we're still sticking to our morals and our ideas of where we want this world to go. We're still in the vast minority, and we will continue to fight, even if it means that we don't succeed. At least we're standing up for what I believe is right.
What amazed me about it was that when I arrived in the square, there was quite a couple of hundred people there, but the square filled up with people. It was a very impressive demonstration. The sound system wasn't very good, but that's always a problem. I have an incredible problem with sound with these cameras. It's the eternal problem. So I didn't learn a great deal about what it was about, but I've picked up bits first, and the just for the public out there, so they know, the recording I did with you immediately had 1,000 hits on YouTube, and YouTube then banned it because it was socially not acceptable. So I have to be careful what I say now, and this is one of the themes of what the demonstration was all about.
Indeed, censorship. If there's only one side of the story, then we're in murky waters. We need to be able to discuss this from both sides and debate it, but it seems like science has become binary. It's 1 or 0, as opposed to realizing that it's an evolving thing. But yes, it is frustrating, but we still fight on. And there are the platforms. They're not the most the busiest platforms like YouTube, but still we're trying to get our message out there and trying to connect with fellow-minded people.
Well, I use YouTube. I've been using it for a number of years, and I got used to its peculiar ways. But I am concerned because I've got a stack of stuff on there, historical stuff going back many years. It's my archive. If they closed me down, if I lost my archive, it would be very difficult for me, and I can't use a lot of these other ones. I just don't know. I'm not up to speed on technology. But a lot of them have got short duration for what you're allowed to put up and all that sort of stuff. I just don't know. So YouTube is a great facility, but it's turning a bit sour, isn't it? I mean, everybody says about the politicians, for example, say how people abuse the fact they've got social media, as they call it, social media. But they're all leaping onto it themselves and using social media for their own purposes. I mean, the government here puts out messages every day. I get about half a dozen messages from government on social media. So it's embraced, but in a peculiar sort of, not a very friendly sort of embrace, is it?
It's not. It's not. If you're speaking from the same page, you're fine. If you're not speaking on the same page or have a different idea of how the world is, then you will be censored and shamed. And I even find that sometimes on platforms like Facebook, that you end up arguing with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
With bots. So it's not a fair fight.
That's right. They're trying to set the whole agenda. They even try to set how my questions shall be phrased. If I ask a question, what looks like a bit of a question, I say, well, we're going to treat this as a question. And the words get jumbled. I type something in, I put the name of somebody, a local person, to attract attention, and I find it's the end of the sentence. So when that appears on the screen, that name has gone off the screen because you've only got so much space to put it on as a title. So it doesn't achieve, they say, well, this will attract you more viewers. In fact, it attracts me less. So, because they've obviously got an American view, basically, and obviously if somebody's name is not known in America, then they're of no importance. If you're a celebrity who's just won the Open tennis,
yes.
You're instantly round the world on every social media, every form of media, official, otherwise, you are the person of the day. Now, if that person was to join your campaign, you'd have instant problem for YouTube, wouldn't you?
Well, you would. I know there's a singer called Nicki Minaj who's just got herself into a bit of a furore. She's got 20 million supporters or followers, and she's told a story about her cousin's boyfriend who has had erectile dysfunction since having his jab, and there's been a huge response from Chris Whitty and Boris Johnson to name and shame her, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but yes, this is the world we live in, where if you're on the right side, then you're all good.
Well, in a sense, I'm glad, because they did knock down the President of the United States. But for a lot of people, that was dreadful. I mean, obviously, in a human sense, why should they? He had something to say. Let him say it. I disagree with 99.9% of what he did say, but so what?
Yeah.
You know, that is the democratic right to express your opinion, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. However, if you control media, you can control the story, and then you control minds. And unfortunately, most people can't see that.
So the story, as far as the group is a group, I mean, just tell me, where did those people come from? Where are they? How did they all get the message that I'm not getting?
Well, it's very interesting, because I've never seen a bigger kaleidoscope of people from different cultures, backgrounds, age groups, professions, and we're all united in where we see the world going, and therefore a resistance to that. And it just sort of happened organically, rather than people just trying to drum up as many as we could. We've all just ended up there, and it's quite difficult to have the same idea on how we get to where we want to be. But if we've got a common cause or a common goal, then... What
would you say is the common cause? What is? I mean, which one of those? I mean, is it child welfare? Because obviously there are aspects about child welfare in Jersey, about abuse, which isn't unique to Jersey. But it wasn't that aspect of child welfare. It was a different aspect of child welfare that you were campaigning on. But people were carrying, protecting our children. Freedom of speech. It's got a specific area of activity, but it wasn't the general. It wasn't there wasn't one issue I could say, this is because it was under the banner of freedom. But was it freedom to do what? Freedom to travel was quite a strong theme. What?
Well, all the inalienable rights that we're born with.
Right.
Freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom to travel.
Right.
I'm no human rights lawyer, but I think everyone's given up a lot over the last 2 years. And yet we still haven't got our freedom back. We've jabbed 60 to 80% of the population, and yet we're still, I don't see how the government won't end up locking us down. Cases will go up. They're doing loads of testing in the schools, which I think is terrible. Weekly tests for secondary school pupils. If you come into contact, it's just the sort of.
And even the official medical professions,
yes,
if they are in that what they are, they disagree. This is one of the things. So that discussion needs to be had, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And have we done risk assessments on the effects of masks? Teachers were, talking to their pupils with a mask on. We're missing so much of that interaction. And children being very uncertain in the future that they've been given, not being able to see their friends and socially interact the way they would normally. Well,
I shall catch a bus shortly.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure what the official policy is now, masks to be worn or not. But I mean, they obviously have not of much use on a bus, I don't think. And now children are going to school. If they go on a bus, do they have to wear a mask? All these questions arise. I mean, even if masks were efficient, when these things were first issued, these masks, or first talked about, you didn't take them off your face and put them in your pocket. You didn't even touch them. If you touched your mask, it was throw it away job, wasn't it?
Yes.
Now, I keep one in my pocket, and people do, and they drag it out when they go into a building, and then they take it off when they come out of the building.
And how many times do you touch your face when you've got that mask on? And so the cross-contamination. It's...
What is to believe? What is reliable information? This is what... I don't know. I mean, I don't know what was... There's so much information, as we've discussed before. There's so much information. how on earth do we believe what your group says? I mean, I won't. If you went to your group, if you got 20 people from your group, they wouldn't all be agreeing on anything. I don't think they'd have different views on different aspects. They will. It's the nature of people, isn't it? Now, because it's not like this is the Bible and this is the word. This is the official word. Do this or you go to hell. That doesn't apply anymore, does it?
No, and even the story changed. If we look at the beginning of lockdown and how, Anthony Fauci or Chris Whitty or Boris Johnson, they were all saying, masks were useless and we shouldn't be wearing them. They should only be used for clinical situations. And then 6 months down the line, we'd done a complete 180 degrees to actually know everyone needs to wear these masks.
Well, even if you received a parcel in your house or flat, you were to leave it outside for 3 days.
Yes.
I mean, who talks about that anymore?
And we're creating paranoia, we're creating more fear. And fear is the most compelling emotion out there, but it's a great way to control the population. And I would love there just to be some... It seems like we've lost integrity and honour within politics. Nobody seems to be able to talk from the heart. It's just following guidelines and policies that are set up somewhere else.
This is one of the... Because there's so many different aspects of the viewpoint.
Yeah.
Is it government that we're fighting, or is it big business? Is it some other power which is trying to control us? I don't know. I mean, I've no idea. I've totally lost the thread, I'm afraid.
Well, this is the thing. We're trying to find out. We're trying to find out where this is coming from. But, Jersey government, they will follow the MHRA and whatever their guidelines are. So there's no independent thought. It just seems like we're in some vast groupthink experiment where anyone who thinks outside the box is instantly censored and shamed.
Well, it's certainly 1984 being played out. It is really. The guy was so perceptive to have written that book.
He was. It was one of the first books my wife gave to me, and it was a haunting book. I think for weeks afterwards, I was still feeling, and I had no idea that here we are, sort of, 20 years down the line from when I read that book, being in this situation, and yet the vast majority don't seem to see how if there's any correlation between 1984 and now, or how to get out of that.
So far as your diverse group is concerned in Jersey, what next? What's the next thing that's going to happen for your group? You're obviously not going to leave it rest, is it?
No. We will continue to fight as long as we have breath.
More demos in the Royal Square?
So yes, we will have more demonstrations and hopefully we'll have another one soon. And we have more people, because now we've got to the stage where there's no benefit for 12 to 15-year-olds medically to be having a jab.
Right.
And so are we therefore using them as a human shield? As adults, we are there to protect the children, and not the children are there to protect us. And I know, Boris Johnson said we're following the science. Well, apparently that science didn't measure up when the JCVI said no twice. And so he found some other scientists who would say yes. And so Chris Whitty and his band of henchmen have decided that it's a good idea that we do this. And unfortunately, we have no mid or long-term data.
No. Of course, in theory, we have the benefit, because we're not part of the United Kingdom. Our government in Jersey, little old Jersey Channel Islands, can make its own decisions on these issues if it wishes.
If it wishes, yes.
Right, but obviously they have to get their information from somewhere, so inevitably their information will come from the United Kingdom. So it's a bit of a theoretical phenomenon.
Yes.
It's a bit like human rights itself. I mean, that's one of the things that attracted me about your group. It was saying human rights, but you're obviously well informed. But if you speak to the average punter, they haven't got a clue. Well, you say, which convention, which article? Oh, well, I don't know. It's my human rights. I say, well, why is it your human right? And this is a failure of government not to tell people what their human rights are, what is enforceable in law. If they stop you travelling, there is a freedom of movement. It is enshrined in human rights law. It has been ratified for Jersey. Can they stop you travelling? That's the fundamental sort of question which somebody ought to be asking. I mean, I can't afford to take a case to court. Yes. Can your group afford to take cases?
Well, I don't know. The thing is, even if we could afford to take it, I feel that it would be dragged on and obfuscated for years, and what would happen in that time? Right. So it feels like, we've got nowhere to go, but we will continue to fight in whatever way we can to try. Because I think the big thing is not having free and informed consent. There's not enough information with regards to what are the side effects. What yellow cards have been pushed forwards. I have a client, and his wife had her first jab, and he looks after her 24/7 now. He's taken her to the hospital 4 times. This is an anecdotal story, so it's my story, and it could be poo-pooed. But I'm telling you what I've found out, and the hospital have told her that there's nothing that they can do for her, and it wasn't the vaccine; it was her reaction. And so there's this constant sort of pushing the blame into a different direction, or maybe even just blindly not seeing what is happening out there, and people need to be informed. But the idea of young children, on something that is experimental, okay, you can say, well, it's got some sort of emergency approval, and while we're in lockdown, we can continue this. But
I suppose the big problem with the virus is that it's not like if the doctor says to you, you've got a cancer, we're either going to treat it or you're going to die. And you say, well, I'm not going to have the horrendous treatments. You've got the decision. No, generally speaking, it won't spread to anybody else. Nobody else will catch your cancer.
Yes.
The trouble is with the virus, the image is contagious some way or other. It will spread. So the message is very strong. You have the vaccination to protect yourself, but to protect others. So this is the very strong message, isn't it?
Social guilt. You could kill Granny.
That's right.
The neuro linguistic programming, all these sort of psychological techniques to try and name, shame, push us, coerce us, and this is the thing. Why would you need coercion if we were in the middle of a pandemic? My concern is, if the WHO, who have changed the term of what a pandemic is from mortality to spread, okay, that seems a bit weird, but anyway, that's fine. But we have flu viruses that spread around the world. So does that mean we're in pandemics for the rest of our life? Does that mean we're continuously in and out of lockdowns? I'm not saying that COVID is flu. We can call it whatever we like. But if we've got a vast majority of the population vaccinated, then we should be safe, and therefore we shouldn't need to vaccinate children.
These are issues that people somehow need to grapple with. I don't know how they're supposed to grapple with them.
Yeah.
I don't know what people...
But we're looking for zero risk.
One of the interesting things about you is you said you were politicised by this movement.
Yes.
Now, I'm a political person. I've always brought up being political. Now, I think that's a good thing that something has politicised you, and presumably a lot of the people who were in the Royal Square a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Now, if they were all to stand for the States next June, I'd be delighted. I presume a few might. Is anybody talking in those terms?
No, not that I know of. The thing is, this is not about ego. This is not about us progressing in a political world. This is about us standing up for what we see as right or what we see as wrong, and therefore we want to try and educate or open people up to the idea that there is another side to the story.
But you need control of the government or some influence. You need influence on government. You need to be in there to influence it, don't you? I think external campaigns do have a real influence.
Yes.
And in this hedgehog type government where it just curls up and hides away, it's very difficult to get into it, to say, and they will acknowledge that, perhaps we were wrong. That's the thing governments won't say, will they? We were wrong.
Yes.
So apart from getting people elected, which is, it's a big discussion at the moment whether you join parties, but you are a group with lots of supporters. Whether they would put their X for a common cause when it becomes a choice between having the housing shortage and all the other issues of the day, whether they would be able to say, well, we'll put for freedom, that's what we'll vote for. Whether they would, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they would?
Well, I think it would be great to get some fresh blood in there, because unless there is somebody within there questioning these, what's going on, or trying to sort of stand up for a different ideal, maybe they get squashed. Maybe we can get one person into the States who's part of our group who can sort of make some progress, but one person out of 67 state members. I don't even know how many there are.
49.
49. So,
Yeah.
I think we are such a small percentage, or at least we're such a small percentage who are actually willing to stand up. The problem in Jersey is everyone knows everyone. And so there's a lot of people who are very nervous to actually stand up and say what they believe. But
you were, visibly, I only
Yes.
have that experience, but you were visibly a fresh voice.
Yes.
And immediately my statistics, my viewers went up immediately overnight. It was like a film star, all of it. And so obviously people want to hear people like you speak.
Yes.
They do want to hear that. No, I'm not saying you're the candidate, but somebody like you would have an influence, wouldn't they? They would have an influence.
They would. Well, it's a great idea. I think at the moment we're kind of maybe a bit myopic in what we're trying to achieve. But I'm trying to save as many children as I can from what I see as an experiment. And for me, that's my first and
Does
most important goal.
the official
Yes.
media, the standard media, government department, did any of them ever call you in to discuss these issues? Have you done an interview with the JP or the radio?
No, I think coming back to your point where you said you couldn't get anyone to speak to you at this protest was because there is such suspicion of any form of mainstream media, whether it's the right arm of the government, we don't know the exact links between the JEP and the government, or the control that the government might have over the JEP, or the censorship of stuff. So I think everyone was too nervous to be misrepresented by someone they didn't know.
Was that the first demo for it? Was that the first?
No. We've been doing demos every 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
And I've had some interaction with the deputy bailiff because for some reason I was pushed forwards as the spokesperson.
Right.
Like I say, I wouldn't necessarily, it's my forte. And we were categorically told that we weren't allowed to have our protest. And so as soon as I compared this to Black Lives Matter, which was 2 months after the biggest worldwide lockdown, 2 months after, in the middle of that, they decided it was okay for everyone to wander around and protest. When we've got this dangerous virus, how was that ever given approval? Either we're in a health crisis where there's a dangerous, contagious virus, or we're not. Or is it just the message that we're sending? So it seemed like Black Lives Matter was a very political thing, and okay, some poor man was murdered or passed away, but we've got to focus on what we have here, and freedom and democracy is the one thing that we've lost.
There's enough issues in what your campaign is about. Now, I'm still learning. I hope the public out there is open to more learning, a bit more education. I hope they'll accept the knowledge. I enjoy talking to you. This is why I'm talking too long, because there is much to be said. There really is. It's horrendous how little the public are discussing these issues. But we must stop, and I thank you for your time. And I look out to further activities from the group and see where you go.
Well, hopefully we make some progress and we can move forwards and save some people. Thank you.